All right, welcome to the August 15th PRTPO Executive Board meeting. I'm PRTPO Executive Board Chair Lindsay Sherman-Warren. Good to see everybody. There, I said we do have a quorum. We'll start with introductions. And since we have Amna here as our incoming PRTPO coordinator, I want to do not just, who you are and what you represent, but let me explain this right. If somebody were to call you and they were to ask, hey, I wanted to talk about, and then fill in that blank with like the thing that you would be most excited for somebody to call you and want to talk with you about. So for example, somebody were to call me up on the transportation thing, I'd be like, yeah, the intersection of land use planning and transportation planning and public transit. But beyond that, maybe like how we do governance and democracy in local government systems and stuff like that. So that would be what I'd be really excited if somebody were to call me up and talk about. So that's the prompt as we do introductions. And let's start with tribes, and let's start on the west end. So is anyone here from Macaw yet?
Mm-mm.
All right. And do we have anyone from Quileute?
No, we haven't for
All right. Clallam Tribes, Elwha,
Mm-mm.
Jamestown, Wendy. Hey, Wendy, I want to talk
Hey.
about.
Uh-oh. We can't hear you, Lindsay.
Oh no,
No,
that
he
was the
gave
fill in
you
the
the
blank for you.
Oh, yeah, of course. I'm the first person that has to fall into that pothole. Great. Well, first I wanted to introduce myself. I'm Wendy Clark-Getson, and I'm the Tribal Transportation Program Manager for Jamestown Slalom Tribe. And as it's been Employee Appreciation Month at Jamestown Slalom, I can't say enough of how much I enjoy working there and the opportunities that are presented by helping a sovereign nation perform transportation services and infrastructure planning. You got it. If someone called me and it was the most exciting thing I could imagine, it would be a revelation to have the 18th Amendment reinterpreted by WSDOT Attorney General's office so that all this BS about not helping replace and reinstall sewer lines with the city of Sequim, with Jamestown Slalom's reservation, all that would go away, and they would include it as part of their normal and typical construction projects. And if anybody would like to know what I'm really talking about, happy to discuss sometime down the road.
All right, that perked my interest for sure. All right, who else? Do we have any other tribal representatives going down the Canal, Skokomish, Squamish? No. Oh, okay. Counties. Let's go Clallam. Mike French.
Hello, Mike French, Clallam County Commissioner. And if somebody called me to invite me to a board game convention, that would be probably the most exciting thing that I could do right now.
What game?
Oh, any amount of games. Dune has a really good board game right now. It's very complicated, and I love complicated strategic board games.
This is why it was fun serving in city council with Mike. He likes complicated strategy. All right, Jefferson County. Greg, are you our county rep?
I am. I've been sort of remiss in this duty, but excited to be here. I'm Greg Brotherton, the District 3 County Commissioner, and I guess kind of in the context of transportation and the icebreaker, I would say I would be really excited if someone wanted to talk about connecting our transit and our multimodal transportation systems and our single occupancy vehicles, sort of a plan for making those fade away a little bit, even in the rural area.
Thank you. I'll call you about that. Kitsap County. David, are you our?
Good evening, or good morning, I should say. David Fort, Kitsap County Public Works. Commissioner Root is not available today. He's out of state. Let's go through. It actually just comes back to the same thing it always comes back to, is talking about money. where it is, how you can use it. I mean, that's what it all comes back to.
Oh, money, what a drag. All right, Mason County. Who do we have for Mason?
You have
Randy?
Randy Netherland, and the most exciting thing would be if they called me and said, you know, Randy, man, I don't need nothing. I don't need nothing from you. I got no issues today, and just wanted to see how the heck you're doing.
Are you running for re-election this year? That really sounds like,
No,
yeah, something I'm
no,
looking forward to not doing right now.
I
All
was looking
right.
forward to not doing it the last time, but it's the way life is sometimes.
Thank you for your service. All right, let's do transit agencies. Clallam Transit. I think, we're missing a rep right now because City Council member Meyer resigned from City Council. And so I think we've been remiss at Clallam Transit of making sure our replacement is there. So I apologize because I could be filling that and helping to make that happen.
He's on his,
Um,
Lindsay, he's on his way. I just forwarded him the invite. So he should be joining any minute now.
awesome. Thank you, Nicole. Do you want to go next?
Sure. My name's Nicole Gauthier, General Manager of Jefferson Transit. And I do think that Commissioner Brotherton stole my thunder. That's fine, though. He can have it. But that is something I'm excited about too. Jefferson Transit is starting to think about ways to connect not only the Jefferson Transit Service, but possibly Clallam Transit Service. We're having conversations with the county that are pretty exciting about a visitor center, a park and ride at the corner of Highway 104 and 19. So we're kind of on the beginning of that process, but we've gained some traction this week, so I'm excited. So that would be what I'm excited about.
Thank you. And maybe let's jump to Miranda too while we're talking Jefferson Transit.
I'm going to be the same on the same level for money, finance. Sales tax revenues for Jefferson County going up. I would be excited to talk about that. Greg knows all about my fixation on sales tax and other grant funding opportunities that we have through the state. Non-FTA, thank you. But yeah, that's what I would be excited to talk about.
All right. Well, if anyone wants to join Representative Adam Birnbaum's new unofficial committee on property tax, reach out to him directly or let me know too. So Miranda, sounds like you're in for that too. All right. Amy down in Mason.
Hi, I'm Amy Asher. I'm the general manager of Mason Transit. And I think as I'm mentally gearing up for back to school, I would love to chat with parents about ways to connect their kids with public transit to get to those long lists of after school sports activities and commitments so that the parents don't have to figure out how they're going to do it at the end of the day. I'm in that boat and I've talked to a couple of parents that are in it right now, and I've moved to a new community and trying to figure it out. So I would love to talk about that.
Like paratransit for minors or something like that. Yeah, that sounds fun. All right. John with Kitsap Transit.
Chuck Boston, Executive Director, Kitsap Transit, and I probably have about three things that would be exciting to chat about. Similarly to Miranda, of course, money, and David. Money is always the root of all concerns, whether it's at the federal level or local level. Our sales tax seems to be doing fine. The other thing is kind of along Amy's line, not just what can we do to better serve school students going back to school, but just in general, what can we do for the agency to make the system more responsive for the community, things of that nature. And finally, I'm excited about the new things, new technologies. There's a lot of things that are we're exploring with whether it be battery technology, fuel cell technology, hydrofoil boats. I mean, there's just all kinds of fun and innovative things, which kind of, along with the other two, make this job at least pretty exciting.
Thank you, John. Let's go to cities. So city starting west to east. I don't think we have anyone from Forks. So City of Port Angeles, I'm the rep. I already said hi. And then Squim, we have Rachel. Go ahead.
Well, when it comes to transportation, I'm not really excited to talk about things, but we are making a lot of progress on our ADA compliance. And so this is probably the most construction we've had in Squim in recent memory. So that to me is just really exciting, progressing toward our accessibility. And I would be most excited to talk about strength training because I've recently gotten into that. So I'm just learning everything I can. I'm like a sponge.
Awesome. Thank you. And Port Townsend.
Hi, Ben here. Yeah, Greg also stole my thunder there for transit related stuff. That was a good answer. So I'll go more general. I really do enjoy, like in a perverse way almost, when people call me asking how they can be heard by their local government and how they can get more involved and get more impact. I genuinely enjoy those puzzles. They're not always an easy answer, but I do like those calls.
Thank you, Ben. We'll head across the bridge down the Kitsap Peninsula. Let's do Ed first, then Michael with Poulsbo.
Ed Stern, Poulsbo City Council, Deputy Mayor. Can you hear me, Lindsay? Okay. I would first call Rachel and Squim and congratulate her on hiring Carla Boughton as their new city planner. I've worked with her for the better part of 30 years. Congratulations. Then I'd call my friend Lindsay from the Port Angeles Council. Thank him for his many years of service, not only for city and the peninsula, but statewide with the Association of Washington Cities. Thank you. And I would share with him my excitement on the steps we're taking to have Western Washington University build an extension campus to serve the 5 Western counties using Poulsbo as its central location, and finally serve the largest underserved baccalaureate population in the state, over 300,000 people without direct access. That's what I'd call Lindsay about.
Thanks,
Right
Ed.
on.
What do you want us to call you about
You can
besides
call me
broadband?
You can call me a pain in the neck.
All right, what other cities in Kitsap County do we have here now? Any other city reps for Kitsap County?
Well, I can go if you want, still with Poulsbo. I'm not sure.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry, Michael.
It's all right.
My fault.
No worries. If you wanted to, let's see, I'll try and be different. I'll go on in transportation. I'd love to chat with folks. I do love to chat with folks about how our personal perceptions and biases shape our thoughts on infrastructure and what should happen. For instance, speeding. If you're a pedestrian standing on the sidewalk and a car goes by you at 25, but fairly closely, you'll swear it's going 40. But yet, if you're the driver in that car going 25, you'll feel like you're standing still. And if you cover up the speedometer and say how fast you're going, you'll say 15 maybe. And then stuff like, well, roundabouts are terrible. Well, why do you think roundabouts are terrible? Because they slow me down. Yeah, but you didn't stop, right? At all. So people's have built-in biases and thoughts about things that aren't necessarily informed by real data. And then I'd also be interested in, from a funding standpoint, in talking about how in the world can us small cities find a better funding source for our local streets for both maintenance and upgrades, rather than being forced to take every single bit of it out of our general fund. And that would be good for me.
Thank you, Michael. We'll take a long trip down through the cities of Kitsap. No other cities. We'll head over to Shelton with George.
You've got Bremerton.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Where's Bremerton? Gunnar, my apologies.
It's all right. I'm subbing in for Vicky Grover, who is out on vacation this week. So by all means, I'm sorry I came in late. I've got a new laptop, and it turns out that the microphone and everything else doesn't quite work well with Zoom on this new one yet. So I've got a little bit of learning to do. But I did like Michael's comments. I will second those. Perception versus reality. Sometimes it's very hard to convince the public.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gunnar. Is that what you'd want somebody to call you up to talk about? Is that the topic of preference for you?
Oh,
I missed the original prompt.
I did. I missed the original question. Yeah, that, and I'm pretty happy to talk about our projects here at the city. Just opened up Quincy Square, and it was quite the festival, and just enjoying the upcoming Blackberry Festival and everything else we've got coming up for the city.
Thank you. All right. I apologize. Anyone else from cities in Kitsap County? All right. Now we'll head over to Shelton.
City of Shelton or Port of Shelton?
Ah, so we're doing cities. So George,
Oh, okay. I don't see anybody from Shelton.
wait, am I mistaken about George?
No, he's on. George, if you're talking, we can't hear you.
Oh, there's.
Which George?
Oh, I'm
Oh,
sorry,
sorry.
George Blush. I'm sorry, George Blush. Oh.
All right, we'll come back to George Blush. Let's go to ports. Anyone from Port of Port Angeles? I don't think so. Port of Port Townsend. Ports, make it easy on me. Ports in Kitsap County. I don't have my roster in front of me. All right, ports in Mason County.
Well, we got the Port of Shelton. I'm Dick Taylor. You know, I've been doing this for 16 years now, and I think that I would be excited if somebody would ask me, what is PRTPO and what do they do and how are they helping our community? What are they doing for our community? I'd love to explain that to them.
Awesome, love it. All right, and let's go to the mothership with George from WashDOT.
All right, I love my job. I love working with all of you, but if any of you call me up, please don't talk about transportation or governance. My preference is hiking in the Dolomites. Ask me anything.
Nice. All right. And then anyone, we have Joe from WashDOT.
Yeah, hi, Reynolds. Introduce myself. I'm Joe Cowles with WashDOT. I don't know if any of you worked with Nazmal Alam, but I'm taking over his position from his retirement. So I'm just kind of here to listen and learn. I'm coming from a world of complete streets. So if anyone called me up to talk about some of our complete streets projects at WashDOT, it'd be pretty exciting.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Anyone else from WashDOT or state agencies? I don't think we do. All right. Anyone else who I forgot? Let's circle back to Jason at Clallam Transit.
Well, thanks, Lindsay. Hold on, get everything working here. I came in a little late. I think we were asking what the question was, what would we be excited for someone to call us about for future projects? And I think it would just be probably just talking with our partners in different transit agencies, finding the interconnectivity so people can travel across Peninsula from one transit center to another more efficiently, quicker, be able to travel to Seattle back to, let's say, Nia Bay without problems, or Aberdeen, finding just the loop around Peninsula, finding a way to get the scheduling times a little bit more efficient for our passengers.
Awesome. I have this vision of one bus that circles clockwise and another that circles counterclockwise. We'll see how long that takes. All right, I'm going to make sure everyone has a chance to introduce themselves, whether executive board members or not. Any other executive board members who have not introduced themselves?
George Blush got a hold of me, and he wanted you to know that George Blush from the city of Shelton, that he's having issues with his equipment, and when he comes on, nobody can hear him. But he wants you to know that he agrees with Randy that he just wants a day with no problems.
All right, so it sounds like George is able to hear us, but not able to speak. George isn't required for quorum right now, is he?
We're good. We're
Okay.
good on quorum, but yeah, yeah.
All right.
And then you've
George,
also got Gary is also.
go ahead there.
Actually, I'm good. Gary, I just want to let you know Gary has come in as well.
Gary, you've got a cryptic name there, so go ahead, Gary.
Gary Anderson, Porter Bremerton. Yeah, I popped in a little bit late, Mike. They gave me a new computer, a laptop, and it was going through a bunch of updates, so it took a little while before I could log in. So Yeah, glad to
Good
be
to
here.
see you. And if I were to call you, what would be like the thing you'd be most excited to talk about? It can be transit or not transit.
Well, at the port, transit, there's a lot of conversation going on about as things develop in that area, how it's going to impact Highway 3, which is becoming a substandard road. And so as things develop and we get better information about how the development is going to affect the roadway, or Department of Transportation is going to jump in and be a part of that, that would probably be the most relevant to this organization, I would say.
Thank you. All right. Any other executive board members? Okay, let's go to Thera. Everyone knows Thera. So, hey, Thera, I want to talk about.
Oh, I am fanatic about transportation and land use, and I'll just, and making that connection, transportation efficient land use, and what that looks like in a rural place versus an urban place. So my friends will tell you, don't get me started. That's and then that just ties in beautifully with Michael's point about perception versus reality. So yeah, all of that together and our inherent conflicts and contradictions. So yeah, that's I can go on for hours.
All right. All right. All right. Let's go to Amna. Amna, sorry.
Hi. I'm the Parson, PRTPO coordinator. I also work with kids at work. I'm employed by Kids at Transit. I just want to make that also clear. I would say for me, for the person who mentioned Doom tabletop, I would say that I am a bit of a nerd, so I'm interested in all those kind of things and just understanding different lores. For transportation, I would say my biggest conversation I want to have is about the migration or flight of people from areas to urban and vice versa, and how planning has to shift the understanding of have to shift how we consider aging a population, because it's changing from now. There's 4 major things about about population shifts, and we're in a 5th one that has not been seen before, of having an older population and a influx of movement of people. So I'm very interested to talk about that, if that makes sense.
Awesome. I heard in Japan, they have like, you can, as a pedestrian, to cross the crosswalk, you can press either the normal speed or like the slow speed and get more time to cross the crosswalk. If anyone's found that hardware available in the US, I'm interested in sharing that with our city engineer. All right, who has not gone yet? And this can be members of the public too.
I think we have 24 people, but it says 25 because the AI meeting notes is considered a participant.
Yeah. And Lindsay, we have 2 staffers from City of Squim. If Nick and Paul want to introduce
yourself. Oh yeah, staff don't get to hide in the background. Come on.
So this is Paul Busich. I'm the Public Works Director here at Squim. As I understood, the question was if someone called me up, what would be excited to talk about? And sorry, George, but I'd be really excited if the Department of Transportation called us and said, hey, we want to make your SIMDARS project a priority, so we want to talk about getting it kicked off. I would be just thrilled beyond belief to get that call and love to talk about it and get it moving.
Right. Sounds like this is a lobbying opportunity as well. Good work there. Was there somebody else, one of your colleagues, Paul?
Yeah, we've got Nick Dostey, also the city engineer. Where'd you go? There he is. Nick, come on.
Yeah, howdy folks. Nick Dostey, city engineer, city of Squimp. I would just love to receive a call that says all the requirements for Fed aid have been waived for all your projects. There you go.
Way to twist around the prompt there. I like that. All right. I think we covered everyone. Last call for intros. Great. Thank you all. Thanks for entertaining that prompt as well. I appreciate hearing everyone's different interests. And I'd go for some board game fun thing as well. That sounds great. All right. Approval of agenda. And oh, do we need to do a bigger welcome? Who wants to kick off the welcome? Amna, do you want to say anything else?
Oh, I don't think so. I'm very excited to take over for Thera and try my best to bring something new, but also things the same to PRTPO. And I'm hoping you guys give me some grace as I go through this transition. But yeah, I'm very excited and interested. If I have to tell my background I've worked 3 years in consulting as a transportation planner, looking at regional connections and working with Nevada DOT, particularly on their guidelines and working on a citywide mobility plan. Besides that, I have my public service career has been in transit, particularly. I'm currently with KT. Before that, I was with Sound Transit. Before I was with PSTA. And while I was there, my role was primarily looking at interagency communication, in addition to transit service improvements as well. So that's my background there.
Awesome. Thank you. And as you can see, we're all here because we care deeply about the work we're doing together. So we're one big team and very excited to welcome you on board. And in good planning, succession planning, I guess, Thera and Amna, whose name I keep mispronouncing, but I think I might have gotten that right that time, are transitioning. So Thera is transitioning out. Do one of you want to say a little bit more about that process and kind of the timeline and kind of who's stepping in where, when, how that's happening?
Yeah, and I'll jump in here and Amna, if I miss something, please fill in the pieces. But yeah, so I am fading out, getting smaller and smaller. You'll see less and less of me. This will be the last meeting that I'm hosting, and Amna will be hosting these meetings for you going forwards, and you'll be getting your agenda packets from her going forwards. And if you read your agenda packet this month carefully, you noticed that while the briefing memos came from me, for more information, her contact information is at the bottom of those packets. So I will be coming back to you for sure in October, I think, with one more agenda item. But at that point, I'll be just another speaker on your agenda at that point. And then I'm just trying to help her make this as smooth a transition for you all as possible. You've got momentum or wind in your sails, and our aim between the two of us is to keep those sails full while we do this handoff. And yeah, and it's really been such a privilege and honor to work with you all over these last 6 years, and really excited to see where you go with all the things that you have on your near-term horizon that you want to tackle. And I will continue to, in my own capacity, sort of be advocating for rural RTPOs in general. And I've got, the primo one to point to as far as examples of what happens when all these governments come together around the table to work on issues together. So yeah, so hopefully everything will seem very seamless to you all. We will do a little bit of testing between us to see if she can update. You all should have, Jason, I'm sorry if I did not have this calendar. I didn't maybe miss that when Jim left Cloud Transit, but we're going to test and see if the calendar invites that you currently have on your schedules if she can modify those going forwards. If not, then we'll send you an email and I'll cancel my old ones and she'll put new ones on your calendars. But just a few logistics like that on the back end, but otherwise the rest of it should be very seamless for you going forwards.
All right, thank you. Wind at our sails, no accidental jibes. We're all good. All right. Anything else before we get into our agenda? Great. So approval of agenda and the consent calendar. We have minutes from June 20th, 2025, the state fiscal year 2025 quarter 4 invoice approval, state fiscal year 2025 UPWP annual report. Any changes to the minutes? All right, is there a motion to approve the minutes and the state fiscal year Q4 and UPWP report? Wendy?
So moved.
Lindsay, I was going to mention, I just couldn't get my voice set up. Can we make sure that we don't have minutes that say April 18th? I don't know if I didn't hear you mention that our minutes are not from April 18th. That was just a type.
We just needed to see if anybody was paying attention.
There you go. No harm, no foul.
Sorry about that. Thank you for catching that. Can you tell somebody uses a template?
All right, and I think I heard, who made the motion?
Dick Taylor made the motion.
I'll second
Who
that.
seconded? All right, and then with the correction for the date of the last meeting. All right, any other discussion? And we'll try unanimous consent if it seems like it's something that will have unanimous consent. So, well, actually, if not everybody can speak, I'm not going to do unanimous consent. So, all in favor of approving the agenda, please, or the consent agenda, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? And recognizing that one of our members' microphone probably doesn't work. All right, that passed, and we are on to the legislative agenda and transportation outlook messages. Thera.
Yeah, so this is, as most of you know, this is the time of year when you take a look at some draft messaging for the upcoming transportation outlook. So we are working now on the 2026 transportation outlook. This is the legislative folio that you prepare every year to let the legislature know, or our 12 legislators know, kind of what's sort of top of mind for you this year that you want to call out to them, bring to their attention, request. We have a legislative work group that's appointed every year, and in June, you all appointed, or they volunteered to serve on this, listed in the briefing memo. But just real quick, it was Lindsay, Ben, Ed, Amy, Wendy, Nicole, John, Michael, and also Loretta Swanson from Mason County had also contacted me on the side and volunteered to help with that. They met and had a lot of conversation spelled out in the briefing memo, but the theme that sort of emerged this year is that with all of the emphasis on complete streets, that really starts with sort of a complete planning that brings that thinks about all the modes of travel and bigger than, I'm going to say, just complete streets. The work that Joe Kalidic from WashDOT talked about is a part of that, but as a part of the legislative work group, they talked about it in a broader context, and they even had some examples of whether it's a fish passage project that also in the design of it is thinking about pedestrian crossings or transit access, or when making highway access approvals in an urban growth area, thinking about not just the car access in and out of that, maybe a subdivision or development, but also what the other modal needs are. So, sort of a way of thinking about that. And so that was very much what the conversation was around. There was a sort of a recognition that by doing some more corridor planning up front, it's a not a terribly big investment, but by doing that up front and getting all the stakeholders involved, that at the end of the day, we can maybe deliver projects and retrofits faster and cheaper by thinking about it holistically up front. And they mentioned the 305 corridor as an example that brought so many different stakeholders together early on in a somewhat lengthy process, but has then spawned project after project after project, so that whether it's Polsbo or the DOT or any of the other partners making investments, it's all adding up to, it's all a different piece of the same game plan instead of everybody kind of going it alone. So that was sort of the primary focus of the discussion. A lot of conversation about a key corridor being the 104 Hood Canal Bridge corridor, the impacts on transit when, with unpredictable openings for sailboat passage, what that means for transit reliability, the inability to make ferry connections. So we took that messaging and we tried to package that into what you have in your briefing packet this month of sort of, as we typically do, sort of a thank you for your service and your support, and then we've got this situation, and then here's some specific asks. And so it's laid out in that way. The format, it's not formatted, it's still draft language and to be worked on before we get into formatting, but it is intended to be one page front and back, as well as what we've done all these years is included a project list. And before we turn it over to you for your discussion of all of this, I wanted to highlight that the project list itself is quite different than it has been in past years. We have, over the last several years, we've seen the way we've traditionally done it is we've just asked members, do you have any projects you want to put on the list for the, to highlight with the legislature? And we never put any restrictions on that. We've had some projects on the list that were fully funded, but somebody wanted to highlight that with the legislature, that even though it's fully funded, we want to call this project to your attention. We've also had projects on the list that were not funded. So members have put any number of different kinds of projects out there, and for the different motivations that they had. But what we have seen over the last several years is that there's been waning interest in that. And in fact, last year, I think we had just like a half a dozen projects, and that was almost twisting arms and then blowing the font up big so that it didn't look too weird. And so this year we're trying something different, again, in the spirit of this notion that some more emphasis on some corridors and corridor planning can lead to this more complete planning for complete streets and the investments, coordinated investments over a period of time that support an agreed upon corridor game plan. We've highlighted a few corridors in here that are examples of the kinds of corridors that we're talking about. And so we're interested very much in your thoughts on that as well, that list, if that's working, if that's complete, if that sort of serves a function. And we put at the bottom of that list those projects. You'll recall over the years, there's always been this sort of reminder of them to honor their previous funding commitments. And so we've always wanted to call out those projects in some way that got some funding either through Connecting Washington or Move Ahead Washington or some other legislative funding package. Make sure that the legislature knows that we still have our eyes on those projects and that we don't want to see them languish. We know, obviously, this past session was brutal as far as some of the funding things that they were grappling with, and so encouraging them, reminding them to protect that funding. And as we'll hear from George a bit later, some of those projects did get delayed, some by a lot, some by not too much, but still, we want them to remember that we've got our eyes on those projects. So we'll see those on that list. The only other thing I think I would also highlight is, as you look at that messaging, I didn't quite know where to put it, but right now I've got it tucked into like a call out box. I'm kind of curious if that's effective for you on the folio regarding funding for the work that you do. Reminding the legislature that PRTPO, as a regional transportation planning organization, is their partner in helping to understand, address, call attention to statewide transportation issues. And the only thing holding you back from doing more in that regard is the lack of adequate funding. So that's kind of a long intro there to it, but what we're looking for now is feedback on the messaging, the tone. Did we hit the right points? How does that list work? We will take the feedback that we get from you all, incorporate that, format that, and then work that and this list through with the TAC in September. And then we'll take whatever that final resulting draft, we'll send that back to the legislative work group for one last look, last refinements, and then it'll come back to you in October for final approval. At that point, we will send it on to the legislators and their aides with a save the date announcement for the December meeting, which is when we have our legislative forum. And then we'll do some follow-up after that. So I would encourage any of the legislative work group members who want to weigh in, either on the draft messaging or the discussion, or to really lead this off, because you are the most involved in that. So with that, I turn it over to you all for your feedback and direction.
Thank you, Thera. So again, I mean, I think as folks know from planning processes, the bigger the change, the earlier to make it. So there's a number of touch points still ahead, but this is an opportunity to comment on this early draft. So any comments, any discussion? All right, I see David and then Greg.
Sure, I'll start it off. One thing on the project list and all the discussions corridor, the SR 104 Kingston realignment is missing. That's one where we are pushing to get existing funding continued and additional funding. So that corridor definitely needs to be part of. There's a number of different spots where they're listed out and also on the project list, but the SR 104 Kingston realignment is part of that.
Yeah. Okay. And David, is that one of those that we're keeping our eyes on, like we're keeping track of, or is this a study need?
This is a funded project.
Okay.
That we need to make sure the money stays there. And also there's an additional need for, there's an additional need for funding to move it forward.
Okay. Thank you.
As part of that. Some other little ones is, I would say the section that says clarify shared streets regulations, that it not be city specific, it's local jurisdictions. And also that the question isn't just pedestrian streets, but it's, it's advisory lanes, those type of things. So just the wording of it may be too constrained for, I think, what the purpose is needed. And the reference to the Seattle, Pikes Place, I think better reference would actually be more with Jefferson's advisory lanes, not Jefferson, but Port Townsend's advisory lanes are more the concepts going forward and getting justification or federal recognition ability to move forward on those than the Pikes Market type of concept going through. And the other one that came up is the little closing one about the World Cup. I think we can find a better use for that paragraph space than kind of that throw off, but that's just me.
Thank you, David. And just a point of clarification, advisory lane is where you're driving down, Main Street in Port Townsend, so there's no center line and the cars are coming at you and you're like, oh, well, how do we negotiate this? Is
right.
That
Yeah.
the advisory lane?
Yeah. Port Townsend has two versions of it. One's in the Main Street that really works, especially for their truck delivery. But they also have it up on the top of the hill where on a local road, instead of having it striped separating it off, is that you can stripe it as a single lane with wide shoulders. And then the cars veer off to can go to the either side of the road for pedestrians or bikes as part of that, or when their two cars are coming, they just move to the side as part of that. So it's been allowed by the feds. However, they pulled back a number of years ago. So technically, if you're using federal money, you can't do it. So there's some things like that. So it's a much wider concept than just what they're doing at Pikes Place. And applicability to cities and counties is important.
Can I just quickly add early to that?
Greg, is that okay?
5 of them, they call them edge lane roads. That's what our terminology, at least in Port Townsend.
Thanks,
and getting a good name that everybody agrees on would also be very helpful.
It's been a lot of confusion, but I think they do operate really well. So
Thank you. Greg?
Yes, thanks. I really enjoyed looking through this, and no big notes or anything. A couple questions just about the Hood Canal Bridge opening. There was a study mentioned that, then I guess I was curious why it wasn't listed in the kind of the program list of the corridor studies. It seemed like it still qualified for that list. And then, more fundamental and just kind of reflecting my ignorance of this table a little bit to date, is it just doesn't seem to go far enough to me. I'm ready to, I know that it's got a huge impact. Is it really study, or do we want to, or what's the history about just, trying to apply some prescriptions to leisure craft openings of the bridge? And has there been conversation about going further and just actually asking for that prescription on leisure craft openings, to set windows rather than at the same intervals as commercial or military traffic?
My understanding is that we've got to go to the Coast Guard, and it seemed like it would be advantageous to have some data to explain to them what the impacts are of the current policies. And then, as far as the corridor itself, I mean, we have it on that table. So it's the first one on that table. And it is meant to, that corridor story is sort of meant to also encapsulate that policy change that goes with that. And then, and this is where I've got to rely on the locals to help me too on this one, is that my understanding is that the infrastructure on the east end of the bridge doesn't help very much in terms of when the bridge needs to close to traffic. The infrastructure itself, the way the intersections work, makes it very slow and clunky for that traffic to start clearing out, and it really blocks the adjacent neighborhoods. So that study was sort of meant to look at the operational issues and the policy issues, as well as what's needed on the east end, so that, again, we've got it's all laid out there, and then whoever the right entity to do it would tackle the different parts of it. Does that
all makes sense? I guess I was a little confused because I thought I saw in the narrative a 250 request for the corridor study and a 150 request for the bridge opening study. So I don't.
Yeah, they go together. They do go together, really.
So
One, yeah.
400 or 250, I guess, is my.
It could be. We could bundle it and make it 400. They're just sort of. And then that would also a little bit beg the question of, I did not indicate who to make that earmark for. I mean, the 150, and George and I have talked about this. We had indicated in that language, in the draft language, that the 150 is needed by WashDOT to complete the operational analysis and be able to quantify what the economic impacts are and the congestion impacts and all of that kind of stuff. And then the thinking was, and then this is a broader, the rest of this would be for the rest of the corridor study, but to whom should it go? And as George said, I mean, first of all, the likelihood that we'll get anything this session is maybe slim, but if they were to give WashDOT $150,000 this session to do that work, George actually doesn't have the staffing authority, the authority to hire the staff to do it. And so they obviously wouldn't have the ability to take on the corridor study as well. So would this body want the legislature to earmark funding and let PRTPO administer it? We've never had that conversation, but that is something for you all to consider, that you can ask the legislature for money for projects that you want to direct or oversee or see implemented. That's why I didn't bundle them together. They kind of, I knew about the 150, and then we're just putting that other one out there, but we could easily bundle those too.
Thank you. Let's stay on the Hood Canal Bridge. John, you had your hand first. Was that bridge related? Okay. If it's okay, I'm going to pass over you. See, George, bridge related?
Yes, very much so. So, the first thing that jumped out at my mind when I read what is written here about the operation study is you begin the request with direct 150,000, and if we could get you to change that to like provide or supplement.
Mhm.
Because what the legislature tends to do is when they say direct is they just take money from one pocket and
Oh,
direct.
oh yeah, no, no, no. Okay, thank
No,
you
we
for
don't
that.
want them to do that. We
No.
want additional funding.
Yeah, thank
you
you.
very much. This is the first time I'm seeing about this broader $250,000 study. I think what's been discussed is we do have a paver on 104 that's coming in a few years down the road on the west end of the bridge between 101 and the west end of the bridge. And as part of that, we'll be preceding that with a pre-design. So that would, I think from that part of the corridor would address the study issue. So I think we're from the bridge west handled. So you might want to refocus this on the east end of the bridge. Consider that. And I will just point out 250,000 is a pretty thin amount for a planning study. We think it's a lot of money. It sounds like a lot. We're not going to get a consultant for 250,000.
So what would you say that amount is that you're
I said my standard response when I'm asked to do a planning study is I'm not sure exactly what we're going to do, but it's going to cost at least $1 million if we're going to hire a consultant, and then we'll get half.
Just
that
do
amount.
a planning study?
Yeah, and then we'll get half that. We ask for $1 million and we get half that amount.
And the consultant works for $500,000. So it's more of a strategy with the legislature to ask for $1 million.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, you have to administer it. So there's whatever agency is doing it, you need to manage that work, and that doesn't happen for free.
Thank you, George. I'm going to stay bridge related because a number of hands came up for that. Mike, was it bridge related?
Yeah. I just want to see if people here are aware of the Hood Canal Bridge assessment that Long Live the Kings is doing. It's very different scope, very different goals. And I have, I was involved with them and I recommended to them that they actually come to this group and maybe give us a briefing or a little education on that. And so I think theirs is funded through NOAA. But, you know, with a lot of different bridge related things happening, I want to make sure that we're talking to each other.
And you have
Thank you,
contact information for that?
I can probably send that along. I can probably dig through my email and find it and send it to you.
Excuse me as I tailgate Mike French. I was just going to say the same thing. I'm on the same committee. I've talked to the coordinator, and I'd be happy to find the contract information that is how much are they received from which agency and is the price of their HDR contract for this non-project planning study.
Thank you, Wendy. David, bridge related?
Yeah. There was just a little thing about who should do the study, and I would just highly recommend that this is a WashDOT. This is a state study. It's all a state facility, and it's state federal coordination, and that they hold all the information. So you're not really going to be pulling any work need from WashDOT by having somebody else do it. But definitely the operationals part and all that should be a WashDOT project or study.
Thank you. And John, thanks for your patience. Go ahead.
No problem. Thanks, Lindsay. And I just wanted to make sure that David's parting comment on this legislative list didn't go without comment. And David, with all due respect, I very much disagree with your assessment of the last paragraph regarding the World Cup. And I don't want to be Chicken Little here, but just to give you a perspective of what we're being told is that the World Cup event is similar to 8 Super Bowls happening at the same time. The other statistic or comment that I've heard is that essentially any living unit within about a 3-hour drive of downtown Seattle is going to be consumed, which certainly goes as far south as Portland and Vancouver, British Columbia to the north. And we definitely believe it's going to have an impact to our side of the pond all the way up into the peninsula. So coordinating with transits to be able to the extent we can, be prepared and respond to, certainly with what funding the legislature has allocated to this effort, is important. Intercity bus transportation is going to be also, I think, critical. And this is my personal opinion, to put it in perspective. For those who come to our collective side of the pond, will not be interested in driving the I-5 corridor with the congestion, only to find what available parking in Seattle is going to be at an extremely high rate per hour. So they're going to be looking at other forms of transportation, obviously public transportation. And the other thing, to put it into perspective, is that World Cup is an event that is worldwide, and many countries other than the US are very used to using public transportation as their transportation option. So again, David, I appreciate your comments, but I think it's well worth the ink and the white space that is on that document, just to be sure that, and we already are doing this with Amy and Nicole and Clown, trying to figure out how we can collectively best respond to this potential need. And I hope that their predictions of the impact is not going to be what they're saying. But I do remember very clearly, for those of us that were here during the Super Bowl, the Seahawks Super Bowl parade, that the lineups to get onto the ferry in Bremerton walk-on passengers went blocks away from the ferry terminal and exceeded the capacity of Washington State ferry boats. So if their predictions are correct, I think we're all going to be having a lot of fun for that 6 to 8 week period of time. So thank you.
And just to add a little bit to John's point, how can we make the World Cup event be something that helps us to improve our inner city transportation systems, particularly public transit and people transitioning onto and off of public transit as either pedestrians or drivers? How can we make that better for the long haul? I think, just hearing John speak now, when the Hurricane Ridge Lodge tragically burned down, Clallam Transit's bus was there as a way to keep Hurricane Ridge open for visitors. And we had huge capacity issues. It was a huge challenge. And I think we learned a lot in that process. And so anticipating the capacity, we're going to be at max in some of these things. We might fill up 300 people on foot ferries over and over again. Are we going to need reservations? Those sorts of questions. And then how much are those systems only for this immediate event versus, something we want to keep in place for the long term? That's maybe, tying that into the legislative asks of the lawmakers at the state level is, maybe a separate question, but it is something I think that is worth considering. So I appreciate that conversation. So this is not our last touch on the legislative agenda for 2026, but any last comments for now? All right, well, feel free to reach out to Farah with anything else that comes up. Obviously, bigger comments, make them sooner than later. And if you like policy wonk stuff, the subcommittee working on this is open to anyone. So with that, we'll move on to the next item, updating the RTP project list. I think this is back to Farah.
Yeah, I'm going to get this one started, and then I'm going to turn it over to Emna. We are about to do our very first update of the RTP project list. Just to remind you, for those of you who might be new in this past year, last October, the board adopted its first sort of, I'm going to say, fresh RTP project list in a lot of years. And the focus, how we've structured it, is to feature those projects that you as members are wanting to pursue grants for. We're trying to highlight those things so that to help help you compete better in the statewide competitive processes. And so these are projects that you have included, or your staff, your agencies have included in your adopted transportation improvement programs that you're have just adopted now. If you're cities and counties, it might be in your transit development plans. If you're a transit agency, scheme of harbor improvements for ports or capital improvement plans, and then also the tribal tips. So each of you have some different, statutorily, you have different ways of developing program of projects that you're pursuing funding for or intend to do over the next few years. And the value of that is that you, in each of your own communities, have gone out to the public with a list of proposed funding needs. The public has had an opportunity to comment on it, and then you have formally adopted those. That's what goes into the regional tip of those that you choose to put into the regional tip. And so that made it just a very logical next step to say, okay, if you've got this project in your adopted plan, and then you've decided to move it into the regional tip, you might have 6 projects in the regional tip because that's what you think you're gonna be doing over the next 6 years. But you know internally, strategically, as you're putting your budgets together and thinking about the next year and the next grant funding cycles, which are those projects that you really, really, really want to pursue funding for because it's the time or it's the right grant program or whatever. So that's what we're really trying to capture. That subset of projects out of the adopted, what will be the adopted regional tip, that will go into the regional transportation plans, sort of near-term project list. So to help you be more effective at bringing money home to the region. And so you adopted the first version of that last year, and you will be updating this as that plan goes in October. And then what we're proposing this year, so we are working on that with the Technical Advisory Committee. It'll come to you in October. But then what we're also trying to do to make this more meaningful to anybody who wants to look at this list, whether it's a granting agency or the public wanting to see, so these are like the half dozen projects that agencies are going to pursue. What are they about? And to be really honest, the information in the tip makes a ton of sense to the folks who work in the Office of Local Programs, but that language doesn't mean a whole lot to just the regular public. So this is a chance to, talk about what the project does in plain English, in real people terms. And so AMNA has built an online sort of mapping tool to collect this information, and I believe she is going to show it to you how it's going to work. And then we're going to have the Technical Advisory Committee help us populate that in September. That whole thing will get reviewed just like the regional tip gets reviewed in late September, early October for public, through public review process. And then it'll come to you in October for adoption, the same time that you would be adopting the regional tip, the new regional tip that you will adopt in October. You would also be adopting this updated RTP project list. And so, Amna, can I turn this over to you to, I've lost you on my screen here, there we go, to show them how this is going to work.
Okay, so as Sarah was explaining, we're moving more into digital submission. So how this works is that the TAC or staffers or anyone who's going to be submitting on your behalf for your jurisdiction will have a link to this particular survey. It's a survey 123 generated by our GIS. When they submit the project to this as a regular survey, it would then generate a location for that project within a layer or a map. And so what will happen is that we will have folks, we'll be able to create a map on the PRTPO website, or a map you want to see where you can see spatially all the different projects on the RTP project list spatially. So I created a video here of how it would look like for the submission of form. So I just wanted to make you guys understand how the form looks like differently than the regular submission we did previously. There's no audio. I will explain it as it hovers. Because audio is kind of hard to predict when you're trying to share screens. So it would, you would just see that real quick. It would just tell you what the actual survey is about. And then you have the ability to identify if this project is actually on the RTIP or a regionally adopted process. It'll also then actually about the funding status as well, if it's fully funded, partially or unfunded. And the reason being is because if something is fully funded, it shouldn't be on the RTP, so you'll be filtered out. And if it's not on the RTIP or has been locally adopted, then it will also not qualify to be on an RTIP. So naturally, you ask questions, you will realize that that probably shouldn't be on this list, and then it would prompt you to leave the actual survey. So those projects would not go on the actual map. So different options, and then from there you pick the correct ones, as partial or unfunded. Then you will have the option to identify if it's a corridor, intersection, or area. Depending on each of these, it will then give you a map in order for you to zoom in and to put the actual location. There's instructions about how to use that for each of those. So you'll be able to zoom into this map and then actually click on the area where you're referring to for the project. And that's what we're going to use in order to map it to the actual map. So you can zoom in. And the location, any spot that you think of. For purposes of this, I just want to speed it through. And then you put the project name, you put the agency name. We also included the county just for filter purposes for the map. That makes it easier for us to filter. Then there's also part description, describe your stakeholders who's involved, making more as layman's term as possible. Instead of saying that we want this to be an easy spatial representation of the project. So we're looking for a very layman's term, public facing type of description of the project. So the arts is very detailed and very, very planner focused. And so this is more about the public facing of the general understanding of it. As you can see, we also have the project's delivery status. So this understands exactly where you are in it. So we understand this project can be in a certain phase for now, but then it could change the phase later. So for as of now, what is the actual phase? And if this project changes, let's say when we do this again in the next 2 years or next year, then you can then resubmit the project again to have it updated. So that's how we can see the changes over time with these projects. If it's not applicable, you can click on that as well. If it's an other kind of phase, you can also type it in as well. Then we want the contact for the project and then an email address as well. So we have that facing as well. And the next one, when we share, can be a little bit fidgety, but as Sarah was explaining previously, is that we're looking at, there are bigger projects that may, for now, if the project is not necessarily going to be completed or begin within this RTP phase within the next 2, then it will be considered a long-term project. So nothing that's immediately happening or completing will be considered a long-term project. And with that, we assume that you guys also have more information about that project because it'll be a bigger one. So we have a field here to provide the website, site image, as well as the project resources attached to that project as well for additional information. And that's the form. That's the form's entirety. It's very simple and straightforward, but this way we're allowed to create a more a map and a spatial facing version of the RTP that we can also internally see projects in a more spatial manner. So we were talking before with the transportation outlook about coordination and having more of a complete planning approach. And so this allows us to see if anyone's doing a project near us and that's on the RTIP. So you can go in here and see where people are actually breaking ground or considering project or plans for. So that is my segment of this. Any questions about it?
Any questions for Amna? All right, thank you so much. So we'll be adopting the new RTP in October. And Amna, you'll be working with the TAC between now and then. Is that right?
Yes.
Great. Any questions, comments before we move on to the next item? Thank you so much for that presentation. This is exciting. I like it. Thanks. All right, next up, not so exciting. We have the election of next year's PRTPO officers. Dara, do you want to introduce this, or should Ben
I'll
or I
introduce
say,
it.
see
Yeah.
ya?
And then I need to turn it over to you and Ben, really. But yeah, so we are scheduled, you are scheduled to elect new officers next year. Officers serve a 2-year term. And the way PRTPO's process works, according to the bylaws that you all adopted a number of years ago, what would happen is that, well, first of all, both Lindsay and, well, first I'll just say neither Lindsay nor Ben are running for office again. Not PRTPO office, I mean elected office. So, but if they were, the way this process would work is that in December, Lindsay would open nominations for the chair, the vice chair, and the secretary for next year. All three of them are both Lindsay, Ben, all three of them, Lindsay, Ben, and Gary, are eligible to serve 2 terms. And so they would disclose in December whether or not they were willing to serve as a second term. And then he would open up the nominations, and between December and February, other nominations might come in. And then in February, at the end of the meeting, you all would vote on a slate of officers, and those new officers would then take over starting in April. But since neither Ben nor Lindsay will be here to even carry that process out next year, that led us to bring this to you today to talk about moving everything up 1 meeting cycle, so that instead of launching the call for nominations in December, we would launch that call for nominations in October. And in December, you would vote, and then the new officers would take over in February. But this is a change from your bylaws, and as such, it seemed appropriate to bring this to you for discussion before carrying it out. And so that's what we're here to talk with you about today. And Lindsay, do you want to add anything about, the discussion we had at the executive committee, or, what's involved, what's entailed, the time commitment that it takes to be an officer or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, so as Sarah just said, not only do we have 2 open seats for our 3 officer positions, but we also have a more expedited, or a proposal for a more expedited timeline based on the election cycle and how we normally do this at PRTPO. So I think in the past it's been, who wants to serve, and I don't think we've had competitive elections. Personally, I think it's great if we have multiple people interested in officer positions within PRTPO Executive Board. But just getting 1 for each might be our goal at this point. So this is an early call for people to think about stepping into that role. With the amazing staff we have, it is not actually that much work. We do have an extra meeting about 2 weeks prior to this meeting, where we go over the proposed agenda and talk about some other things. And at that meeting, kind of previewing things, that's helping to make this meeting usually go very smoothly. And then what else? Ben, you had some comments about the value of being on an officer.
Well, just like you said, having that meeting a couple weeks ahead of this meeting gives a lot of perspective, and a good chance to give feedback to the staff. Yeah, I just much deeper into it. I haven't been in this role, so I recommend it to others. It has been painless. Good. The staff's been great too, in the support.
We did have a conversation about who the officers are, and I think there was a sense that having elected officials as officers created respectability privilege for the PRTPO. So my instinct was to say, well, anyone who's part of the executive board should be able to serve, and that is, I think, also true. But there's probably a preference for elected officials serving, and so in terms of like whose arms we're going to twist, if people aren't jumping out of their seats to self-nominate, that's probably kind of where we're going to be going as the outgoing officers, and trying to make sure that we do succession planning as well as our own staff have done, if that makes sense. Wendy, go ahead.
Yes. Thank you. I was about ready to raise my hand. I wanted to ask a question to you and Thera, Lindsay, about how we changed the bylaws, or perhaps we didn't, to let Beck Ashby continue in her role when we knew that she was stepping down from her elected city council position. And was there anything that we could have learned from that?
That was the city council choosing to allow Beck to continue representing the city, even though she was no longer a city council member. John, you may have more of the detail of how that worked.
Yeah, you're exactly correct. It was the city council that designated her to be their representative on the PRTPO. So it was kind of a hybrid between, elected and non-elected. So I guess that's always an option.
But that would take a vote of our respective councils if that was something Ben or I was interested in. I'd love to turn over leadership, honestly, so I'm not jumping out of my seat to pursue that option with my council colleagues. At the same time, that is an option too, so not out of the question. Thank you for raising that and bringing that up. Any other discussion, comments? Early nominations for the group. Get in there ahead of the pack. Didn't expect that. All right. With that in mind, if you start screening our calls, we won't take that well. We'll start texting or showing up at your house. All right. Any other comments? Thank you. Okay, next up we have WashDOT Olympic Region Annual Project Review. And all right, we just made up quite a bit of time, so we're only 2 minutes behind as opposed to quite a bit of time behind. So I think we're good for time. George, take all the time you need on this. And Thera, did you want to introduce anything?
Sure. Just real quick, confirm, will we, after George's thing, we'll come back and talk about the executive board retreat?
Yeah, that's where we just failed to make up time. Sorry, thank you. Yeah, what order do you want to do it in, Thera?
As long as George doesn't go too long, because you just said take as long as you like, we can tuck it in at the end. But I also
that was my mistake, because I accidentally skipped an item on the agenda. So let's keep the agenda in the order it was. My apologies as the chair. Let's go to the executive board retreat discussion.
Okay, and I also see Greg's hand up, so I don't know if we want to.
Greg, go ahead.
I think quick, just a question, whether or not, I wasn't sure if you wanted a motion on moving up the election cycle to begin in October.
Oh, I hadn't really put it in as an action item, so.
That's fine.
Okay. Okay, and so then I'll just jump in really quick. Then I don't think this will be a long discussion. A year ago, you all met for the first time. A year ago in October, you all met for the first time since February 2020, and you took full advantage of that. Made sort of like a half-day mini retreat. We were not quite sure how we were going to pull that off because we didn't really have resources for it. Your budget's super, super tight, unasked for, the Jamestown S'Klallam tribe stepped up and actually hosted us at no cost, including a fabulous lunch and use of that amazing facility. And it was well received. Everything was, we got really good feedback from it. And several of you were involved in helping to shape that agenda and how that all came together. We did not budget that in the current UPWP for year one of the UPWP because we just don't have any resources to do that. And so with the transition and all, we sat tight. We said, well, maybe if we can do the first year super efficiently, we can have enough resources left over in year 2 to have an in-person retreat. And we learned just a few weeks ago that Wendy actually took it upon herself to apply for a grant that enables the Jamestown S'Klallam tribe to host PRTPO for an in-person meeting. So it would not cost PRTPO, we would not have to come out of our budget. And so, which is super exciting. And so because of that, and so that we can think about planning ahead, because these things take a little bit of time to pull off, and certainly we would need to get it on the calendar with the tribe. I checked with Wendy on dates for the months that tend to be best for this type of a thing. And that's either an April meeting or an October meeting, because December, you've got the forum, the legislative forum. February, the weather's kind of iffy. And then what we heard also is that June and August, there are a lot of conferences that you all go to, as well as vacation conflicts. So we've got 3 in the next year. We've got 2, you got this upcoming October, next April, and October 26th as being those 3 meeting dates. And Wendy confirmed all 3 of them are open. However, I will say be a little bit of a heavy lift, but it could be done. We can pull off all kinds of stuff. It can be done between now and October if there's a reason that we should make it this October. And to John's point about World Cup planning and logistics and coordination and all of that, maybe that October would probably be the time to do that. But if we decide we want to do that, then we'd want to know today who among you might be willing to help us in that agenda planning. Otherwise, we might be looking at next October or next April, or next April. And so this is a chance for, first of all, do you want to meet in public again? And secondly, do you have a preference for dates? And I'll also share, I happen to know that Wendy would not be able to attend this October. So that's maybe also a factor just to put in there while everybody's thinking about this. So that's the background on that. And I would be just really interested in hearing A, of your interest, and B, what you think would be the best time period to aim for on this. And then we'll plan our stuff accordingly. Lindsay?
Is anyone really itching to meet in person this October? And that means October 17th. All right. Is that useful, Sarah?
It is useful.
Amna?
That was, if it's going to be this October, Amna and I have stuff to do this afternoon.
All right.
So
I
yes,
think
that
we
is
might.
useful.
Yeah. All right. So I think we might have just decided not this October. What other information do you need from the group at this point?
That's the most important thing, and confirm that the group is interested in meeting in person sometime next year, either next April or next October. Yes.
All right. I see a number of thumbs up. Does anyone disagree with the idea that in-person meeting, annual or maybe every other year, based on the pattern we're going to, is valuable? Anyone disagree with that? All right. I saw thumbs up and no objections. All right. What other information is useful?
I think, Wendy, do we need to give you a date? How soon do you need us to confirm whether it's April or October of 26?
The Red Cedar Hall gets used by so many different groups, so it's always sooner is better. And, I've got IT people and facilities people that also have to plan around that date.
Yeah.
So just knowing helps.
If we could confirm that in October, would that work, do you think, from your vantage point, if we gave everybody time to think about it and then come back in October and ask the board to sort of say, we like October,
Exactly.
we like April? Okay. Then this would give us the information we need, Lindsay.
I think if you waited until January, that would be a disappointment, because I bet the room had already been booked. Yeah. But
Okay.
October, I would say you're much better off.
And just to check, any strong feelings about meeting in April or meeting in October of next year for our regularly scheduled executive board meeting.
In
I
person.
think with people with kids, just so long as it stays away from spring breaks, we're doing awesome.
All right.
Okay.
Cool.
We'll verify. Yeah. We'll circle back in October, this October, and nail down and give everybody time to think about this.
Okay, sounds good. And maybe the schedule might do away with decision by then too. We'll find out. All right. Any other discussion about that item? And thank you again, Wendy, for making that possible and for hosting.
Certainly. Yes, the funding is available all the way to June 30, 2027. So if everything were to crumble, it could be something that we can plan even later on.
Okay, thank you.
All right. And so without objection, I think we'll just shorten our our member update time at the end of the meeting. I don't believe anyone from the public is here, but we will still have public comment at the end. And with that and the fanfare I made earlier, turning it over to, well, Thera or George?
I'm just going to hand it right over to George. You know George. He does this for you every year. So yeah, thank you so much for doing this again, George.
You're very welcome. It's my pleasure to do it, and I'm going to try to share slides here. But we started this with a discussion of what would you really want to talk about, one thing, and I did it on transportation. But if I selected a transportation topic, it would be the decisions that started 20 to 30 years ago about preservation are starting to come home to roost, and we're seeing that in a big way. And obviously, in Olympic region, outside of PRTPO, we've got the Fairfax Bridge, but that's just the start. And we just saw it like 2 weeks ago with SR 169, just north of Enumclaw. That's turning into be a big project. The Aberdeen bridges could be next in line. We've already had problems with those. And it's playing out now in the STIP. So unfortunately, the way this is beginning to play out is all of these big bridge projects that are closures and are having to be replaced. We're just taking more preservation funding for it. So we're continue to kick the can down the road. So the way things are shaping up now, things are going to get much worse before they get better. And some fundamental changes really need to be made in how we deal with preservation, because it's going to really affect how we're able to preserve our system as we continue to have to deal with big backlogs and very expensive projects for things that haven't been properly preserved over the last 30 years due to funding choices that were made. So that's kind of the background, and we're going to see that in the STIP as some projects get kicked out. So give me a second here to try to get this into proper presentation mode. And let's see. Was presentation mode shared with me?
Yep, you got it. Just hit that green button that says share.
Oh, that green button. Thank you
Yeah.
very much.
So what happens when our friends who use Teams all the time have to then get thrown into Zoom?
All right. Do you see a great big PowerPoint slide?
We've got it. We've got it,
rock
George.
and roll. Okay. So let's step through this. So first is a very big overview of projects. The STIP that we'll be presenting has total 29 projects in it, broken out as you see it here. As has been the case in recent years, the majority of the number of projects and even the dollar amounts are fish passage, environmental retrofit. So about half the projects are in the environmental retrofit. Most of those are, all but one are fish passage projects. We have 13 bundles and 69 individual sites. So about over 1.1 billion in the programmed amount is in that. There are 3 preservation projects and then 12 improvement projects, safety and mobility. So I'm going to have a slide here that talks about projects that are getting kicked out a little bit due to funding. But the good news is, I want to get this in, is there's 12 new projects in the STIP this year that weren't there in prior years. So I want to start with a little bit of good news. So there's a pretty robust set of projects. As you've seen in prior years, and you'll continue to see in future years, a lot of the investment is in the fish passage category. Within the 29 projects, there are a number of projects that have unfunded construction, either partly or fully unfunded construction. There are 7, so 5 of them are fish passage bundles that are still in early stages of development. 14 sites that do not have full construction funding. And then there are 2 improvement projects that do not have full construction either. So one is on US 101 down in the Shelton area, is median barrier project. And then SR 305 and Day Road does not have full funding either. And then the unhappy news is kind of what's been kicked out or we have a schedule delay from the prior STIP. So what I want to caution on this is this is any type of schedule delay. So this is not that we've had necessarily projects that had funding removed, but there may have just been a 1-year delay in the letting of the project. It could be funding related. It might have been, there were problems in the right-of-way phase that kicked out a schedule. So there's a combination of factors at play here, but it is delaying some projects. So from last year's STIP, there were 25 environmental retrofit projects. 7 of those 25 have a delay of at least 1 year in them. 5 of those 7 are actually fish passage adaptive management projects, and those are where we're going back into prior fish passage projects and making adjustments within the stream bank. So they're not really affecting the roadway, but they come out of the environmental retrofit pocket. But there are 2 major projects that were kicked out a little bit. One is on SR 106 is a shoreline stabilization project, which I think is delayed about 1 year. And then a stormwater retrofit project on SR3. And then in the preservation realm, 3 of the 15 projects have been kicked out. And this is an issue with the preservation budget and constraints within that budget. So the 2 projects in US 101, the paver projects between Port Angeles and Squim have been delayed. And then a chip seal on SR 108 is also delayed. And then 6 of the 12 improvement projects from last year have some amount of delay. Most of you are pretty familiar with these delays. So the SR 104, we heard David talk about that one, mentioned that one earlier. The Simdars project, SR 3 Freight Corridor has some delays in it. And then there are 3 roundabout projects that are more in the safety realm where there's a bit of a schedule delay on those. Okay, so that's the big picture overview of the project and the dollars. I'm going to jump over to the mapping that we have now. But before I drop this, does anybody have any questions on this? And Thera, I'll need your help because I don't get a full view of everybody if anybody raises their hand. Nothing? Okay.
Nothing right now, George. Keep going.
Let me jump over to the GIS map. And we'll share that. Try it again. And do you see a lovely map?
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
Awesome. Okay, so this is all the projects, and we're going to step through a couple different formulations of the projects on the list here. So in the blue, you see some blue fish, and those are, of course, the fish passage projects. There's a couple of green items that you'll see. Those are the preservation projects, and then the orange are the improvement or safety projects. Those will be mobility funding or safety funding. I did notice going through this morning, there are a couple of things were misclassified, and I'll try to point those out as we go along. So the first item I'd like to kind of step through are the delayed projects. So you can get a kind of an indication of those. So the 3 roundabouts are along SR3 that are delayed, and then there was one in the SR 166 in Wolves Road. It was a compact roundabout. So those are the 3 delayed projects on those. let me close that out and bring our item here. So kind of spread around. The big dollar items for delay are the paver projects in US 101, and this was the subject of a lot of complete streets work about a year ago that wrapped up earlier this year. I think there's about a 1 or 2 year delay in those projects, but ultimately will be move forward as preservation projects. New projects since last year. Get a sense of those. So a number of fish passage projects, mostly in Kitsap County. There were there were 6 roundabouts that were added. So 2 on SR3 in Shelton, down in this area. We're currently working on those pre-designs right now. Those are complete streets pre-designs. There are 3 roundabouts that have been added. Intersection projects along SR305. Of course, one of those is the SR305 and High School Road, which is, I think, a release just came out yesterday, if I'm not mistaken, about initiation of our pre-design project on that. And I think some of the members on this call probably got an email from Steve Rourke, our region administrator, about that. And then one further one, I believe that's right in this area. So those are the new projects. No additional preservation projects added. And then the projects without construction funding, those tended to be the fish passages, some disparate ones along US 101. Our big bundles are moving ahead. Some of the other ones have been still don't have construction funding. And then you see the 2 improvement projects, the US 101 cable barrier on Shelton, and then SR305 and Day Road. And then the remaining projects that are moving ahead, you see here, the majority are the fish passage projects. The one that has been misclassified in color was the SR 106 along the Hood Canal, was the shoreline stabilization. It shows up here as a preservation project. It's actually an environmental retrofit, neither here nor there. But that one was kicked out a little bit, but it's still funded for construction. So with the exception of the SR3 Freight Corridor project, that's a major mobility improvement project. Most of the other work within the PRTPO region is intersection type improvements, safety improvements, fish passage projects, and a handful of preservation projects. And then we don't show it here, but because it's not a new project, there's no change in it, but the Gorst pre-design work and environmental work continues, and it continues on the schedule it has been. But you don't see that as a STIP item here, but there's been no change in the schedule of that project. So that's kind of the overview of where we are with the STIP projects. I'm happy to, if anybody has any specific questions about projects, happy to help with those. I hesitate to think what it's going to look like next year with what could be down the pike, given what's going on with their preservation program on both the pavement and the bridge side. It's hopefully they'll be a little bit happier. We'll see what the legislature does. I'm not sure I'm seeing everyone. So I see Lindsay and Ben with hands up. If there's others, okay. Lindsay, I think
Lindsay and then Ben. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for starting with the big picture on the budget scenario for state transportation. And of course, bridges are absolutely crucial. I was wondering if you could get into a little bit more detail on what that means. And I guess the strategy for WashDOT would be push back projects that aren't as critical. And I also wondered if you could speak to the I-5 bridge to Oregon and kind of what the status of that is, because I assume there would have been federal funding or is still federal funding with that.
Okay, unfortunately, I'm not up to speed on the I-5. It's actually been shifted up to our mega regions program. So don't know. Unfortunately, I can be able to answer any questions on that. What was the rest, the first part of your question?
Oh, I mean, so because of deferred maintenance on state bridges and the need to prioritize those from a
Mhm.
safety perspective, I'm assuming that other things that are less or like less of a catastrophic risk are getting pushed back unless the legislature miraculously finds a lot of funds for transportation.
Yeah, I mean, we're, as my boss likes to say, we've always been making tough decisions as to how we allocate limited funding, and those decisions are getting a lot tougher because we're having to take the limited funding and now backfill for the prior decisions. The great case I know a lot about is Fairfax Bridge. It's a very low volume bridge in a rural area. When you prioritize, it obviously fell to the bottom of the list for limited funding because it has average daily traffic of like 300 vehicles. So obviously you prioritize bridges that are more important for commerce, more important for commute, have ADTs 10, 50, $100,000, 100,000 vehicles. But now we have a closed bridge, we need to replace it, and the most likely scenario is that they're going to take the preservation funding and put it to that bridge. So now you have even a smaller pot to spread across the remaining bridges. So we have a kind of a cascading, we're facing a real cascading problem over the next 5 to 10 years as the low priority projects from the past that weren't addressed have turned into major cost items. And it's not a decision WashDOT wanted to make. A lot of fingers are pointed. As all of you know, when you have limited dollars, you have to make tough decisions and prioritize those. And it's getting much worse because, what all of us have been warning our leaders about of underfunding preservation is coming home now. And we're left with some really, really expensive projects that we're being expected to fund through preservation.
Thank you, George. And do you want me to facilitate questions or are you able to see?
I think I see Ben and then Wendy is what I see. I don't know if anybody else has a question.
I just have a light out.
Ben.
I wish the fish passageway icons look more like salmon.
Oh, it's funny you say that. We did have this discussion yesterday, but there's no salmon.
Yeah.
So
That's all I got right now.
Oh, okay. We'll work on that for next year. We have a whole year. I can handle that question. Are the other remaining ones in that realm?
Softball there.
Wendy?
George, I hope this is a softball question. I'm speaking to the orange. Oh, it just disappeared.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The orange dot that was at the bottom of Discovery Bay at the junction of 20 Highway 101. And I hope that this project could be emblematic of a discussion that we had at our legislative work group that discusses how complete streets, safety, transit issues, everything can be woven together as the necessities of what makes a good project. And it seems like at the bottom of Discovery Bay, there's a lot going on, including even some mitigation work. Again, old projects that have been, deemed as low priority are now coming to the surface. And it would be so great to take on this as a sequential heading towards what is a scoping process that really identifies the opportunities that may have been triggered by that orange dot.
And this orange dot here, this is I brought the project up. It's a very localized surface treatment. That's it, kind of a systemic safety project. But your point is taken that it's been what 6 or 8 years since the corridor sketch process occurred. This was actually prior to my joining WashDOT, and that's the last time there was really a system-wide look. We're getting ready, our headquarters is getting ready to start a statewide multimodal plan. This was discussed, Sarah, you were part of the discussion earlier this week, but that's not going to be taking kind of a fresh look at individual corridors. It's assembling information that already exists. So it's been a while since there's been a real systemic look at individual corridors, like you mentioned, Wendy. We'd love to do more of it. um, we're just kind of lacking resources to take some of these looks. But we'll, since you've mentioned this one, I saw a few head shaking that, if we think this stretch, say between SQUIM and SR 104 is a key corridor, we can push that up in our priority for when we next do planning studies.
Thank you. Thank you. And I should also insert that the Olympic Discovery Trail is sort of doesn't exist in that region. And we need WashDOT to help make that happen.
And so I
Thank
hope that even though, Wendy, it's not near Jamestown Slalom Tribe, that when we do the 104 pre-design, it's a little bit further east, that you'll get engaged with that. Because that's kind of a real opportunity to maybe further the implementation of the Discovery Trail.
Okay, I'll note that. Thank you.
Okay. Michael?
Yeah, I was just going to kick in that although it appears not really relevant to this particular project, but part of what Wendy was alluding to in our discussions at the other meeting was just that we want to make sure that as projects move forward, we know that they're going forward in phases. You can't do all of the pieces of a project in one thing, but we look at the overall picture and make sure that whatever we do actually implement doesn't become an impediment to the future needs in that area. We don't cut off things that by putting a guardrail where we want a crosswalk or stuff like that.
Right. And we've been talking about that at WashDOT, that with Complete Streets, we'd like to do more of, I'll call it a master plan for corridors. There, you talked about that too. It's on our radar. We obviously have a lot of corridors we need to address, and we're trying to figure out which ones we want to tackle first. But right now, our approach is we wait till there's, say, a paver project in an area or a safety project, and then we do a localized complete streets assessment just for that project. The ideal situation is we're working in advance with the local jurisdictions and coming up with a 10 to 15 year program. And then when we do our preservation project, we come back, we're working from that master agreement. And then the cities or the counties are working towards that master agreement too. That's the vision, and I think 5 years from now we'll be there. The difficulty is making that first step with the resources we have available to do it now.
We applaud the vision, and we all are sympathetic to what it would take to achieve.
Yeah. So, and there, I'll put in a push for you. I think we keep coming around to the tools there has been developing and the team has been developing to prioritize from your vision, what are some of the really critical complete streets needs in these outlying areas are a great step and will be a key tool, whether we do an individual preservation project, complete streets, or we, are able to start tackling these master plans.
Thank you, George. Any other questions, comments for George? Or about WashDOT's Olympic Regional Annual Project Review? All right, I appreciate those last comments on the planning and cross-checking the plans. As the saying goes, personnel is policy too. And so the relationships that we have between WashDOT and local governments here is really key. So George, thank you so much for being such a big part of PRTPO and everything.
Yeah, thanks for inviting us here today.
Appreciate it. You are always welcome, of course. All right, moving on to public comment. I don't think there's anyone officially from the public, but does anyone want to make a comment as if public comment? All right, and then member updates. Raise your hand if you'd like to make a member update. Ed.
Thank you, Lindsay. Just to inform the group, with the great success of the Highway 305 working group, which came with Connect Washington money in 2016-17 and resulted in the roundabouts between Highway 3 entering Paulsbo and the Bainbridge Island Ferry you've all seen. We're using that as a model at Paulsbo, and the City Council's called for a 307 study working group. Doesn't come with any money, but the continued additional traffic and development, commercial and otherwise, 307 links 305 as soon as you come off Highway 3. with the Kingston 104 for the Edmonds Ferry. So it's that route. And the Suquamish tribe has just built a new facility along it, and there's a lot of proposed development. So we envision, obviously, the city of Paulsbo, Kitsap Transit, Kitsap County, the two tribes, Kingston in some form or another, and we'll be getting going on that study group here in the next month or two. So a Highway 307 study group. Thanks, Lindsay.
You, any other member updates? Michael.
Just to, I agree. That's with Ed. That's that's great. We're looking forward to that. And I was going to point out something that Thera and I talked about when we were going over the legislative update. You know, if you were to compare the traffic through Paulsbo, specifically what I was thinking about, but trying to put any traffic numbers with anybody in the public in terms of how they compare it. It's easier for them to grasp if you tell them we got 40,000 cars a day in Paulsbo. That's the same in an area with stoplights. That's the same traffic that's on I-5 south of Centralia and north of Ferndale. That I-5 traffic is going through Paulsbo every single day. So that's a way to help get people some perspective. And then also I want to really call out George and thank you, George Mazur, for all your work with this group, but also for helping us get our comprehensive transportation plan and comprehensive plan to a good approved state. Thank you very much. You're wonderful to work with. We appreciate it.
Thanks a lot. Luckily, I have a great team, Joe being one of those members, and they make me look smart. So, you know, 2 cheers for great staff.
Yeah, for sure.
Any other comments? Going once, going twice. Don't leave the meeting yet, because I'm going to throw one more thing on the agenda. And that's since at the top of the meeting, we discussed how AMNA is going to be lead staff for our next meeting. It seems to me like now would be a good time to thank Thera. And so how about everyone put your cameras on and get ready to pick emojis or like wild hand waves. And a big thank you, Thera. You've been an amazing coordinator. And we will say goodbye for you facilitating our meetings, but we know we're not saying goodbye because you're going to be in the middle of all this for a long time as well. So thank you for all your work in regional transportation planning for the PRTPO. And I hope people are getting screenshots of this because I had a little malfunction. And grab those screenshots and send them to Thera. All right. Thank you all.
Thank you, Thera.
Thera, any last words for the last meeting that you're the main staff for?
Just I'm really inspired by what regional planning organizations in general do in this rural region. Keep it up. You guys are doing great things for the region. It's this group that nobody really knows exists, but what you do really matters. So thank you for doing what you do and making the time.
All right. Any last words? If not, we are adjourned. See you in October.
Bye, everybody.
Wow.
Bye, sir. Bye, Thera.